Mary.
How are you?
Doing great.
Good. Look, we have so much to discuss with you, so let's get right into it. Yesterday on CNN State of the Union, Jerry Nadler, who is the apparent future chair of the Judicial House Committee, said that his first act will be to subpoena Matthew Whitaker, the acting attorney general, to clarify his past comments about Mueller's Russia investigation. They're trying to get him to recuse himself or in some way get him replaced. Do they have a point? Are they right in what they're trying to do here because he has shown bias?
Well, no. Any type of public comment like that, which is minor, when he was a private citizen, is perfectly appropriate. He didn't make those statements while he was a government official. He was hired as the chief of staff by the Attorney General. No one in the Democratic caucus in the House or Senate complained about him being hired to do that. He's been in that position for almost 2 years. And under the Vacancies Act, the president appropriately appointed him acting Attorney General. So this is all politics by Nadler and the Democrats, but that's what they're very good at. And they have since violated their pledge that they weren't going to conduct investigations. They were going to do the people's business, and now they're telling us it's going to be investigations all the time. That should surprise no one, but it doesn't change the legal fact that Mr. Whitaker is legally in the job as long as the president wants him there.
Now, Joe, you talk about his ability to do the job through the Vacancies Act. There's been some pushback from Democrats saying that he hasn't been appointed as a principal officer, confirmed as a principal officer. Is there any necessary confirmation process in order to have him as acting Attorney General?
No, not under the Vacancies Act. He holds a senior position for more than 90 days. It's common understanding of the way the act has been interpreted is that anyone who holds a senior position, and certainly chief of staff for the attorney general is a senior position, that would work. Now, that doesn't mean that the Democrats aren't going to try and challenge it. Heavens, they might even go to court to do so. And we'll see. I mean, they are perfectly capable of anything now that they control one house of Congress, and they do have legal authority to do lots of things because they do control the gavel. They can certainly subpoena him, ask him questions. He can decline to answer any question he chooses to do so because he said it might influence an investigation. And he'll be very neutral in what he says if he does agree to go up and testify.
You know, the one question that I have when it comes to Whitaker is, could the Republicans then turn around and go, well, then Justice Ginsburg should recuse herself from anything having to do with this administration because of her comments, not always very nice, about President Trump?
Well, Ruth is a fascinating figure, and she said a lot of awful things about the President of the United States. Certainly, she has said many injudicious things about the President of the United States that would raise legitimate questions about her ability to be fair and impartial to the President or his administration. But as you know, you cannot get a Supreme Court justice to recuse him or herself. That's all self-imposed discipline. There's no one to tell them they have to recuse themselves. And so this will simply be an interesting discussion about her attitudes, but it won't change her ability to vote on any given case.
Joe, it's going to happen this week. It looks like Senator Chris Coons and Senator Jeff Flake and Senator Susan Collins as well, and maybe others, are coming back to the Senate and saying, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pass legislation to protect Bob Mueller from President Trump. Obviously, this is not going to go anywhere. It doesn't have the support of Mitch McConnell, but it is going to get a lot of attention in the press this week. What is your pre-buttal to that?
Well, first of all, it doesn't look like Mr. Mueller needs any protection. There's been a lot of discussion about him, a lot of criticism of him, a lot of criticism of his lack of production about proving that there was Russian collusion, which there hasn't been, and there's been no evidence of. Why it would be necessary to protect him at this point, given that from all published reports he appears to be preparing some sort of a memorandum to send to the Attorney General about what he's done.
Yes.
I think it's ludicrous. It's obviously unnecessary. Even if the Senate were to pass something in the House, the President would veto it. Mr. McConnell has indicated that it will not be given any floor time and it's not on his agenda. So this will be just political discussion. Nothing's going to happen in this area.
All right, let's move on to one of your favorite people in the whole world, James Comey. We found out through a FOIA request from the Cause of Action Institute. They filed the request for Comey's Gmail correspondence involving his work for the Bureau. There are approximately 1,200 pages of messages. 156 of them have been turned over. 7 emails were not turned over, refused because they would disclose techniques and procedures for law enforcement investigations or prosecutions. Another 363 pages were withheld because they discussed privileged agency communications. Is he off the hook there, though, because he testified that he only used his email account for incidental purposes and never for anything that was classified, which it sounds like that's technically true.
Well, let's put it this way. Mr. Comey, in fact, used a personal communications device to conduct government business. And the fact that some were withheld from disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act means that they involved serious enough government business that they could not be disclosed, or personal information. This is a continuing part of the James Comey narrative. Mr. Comey is still America's dirtiest cop. He remains, in his own mind, a giant and a figure of extreme importance in American history. However, he remains a disgraced former FBI director who was fired by the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, who everybody in the Democratic Party now says was a great Attorney General who should not have been relieved of his duties, when 2 years ago they were saying that Jeff Sessions was a racist and a dumbbell and too close to the President of the United States. One thing that's certain about this entire story, you can always count on the Democrats to say whatever is necessary to make their position look good, which of course it never can. But Comey is, in fact, remains a disgraced, fired former FBI director, and there's nothing surprising in this news story about the fact that he used his private phone for official government business. But, all of this doesn't matter if, in fact, any investigation of Comey and the thieves at the top of the FBI is not being legitimately conducted. And as long as Rod Rosenstein is there at the department, which I'm not sure is going to be much longer, none of this is going to come to fruition. This will be the true test of Whitaker to see whether or not the work of anybody investigating the FISA abuse and everything is really a serious investigation.
Well, all this sensitive information in his email really colors in the lines on his statement on Hillary Clinton, by the way, remember? She should
That's right.
She should have known better, and this isn't prosecutable, right, everyone?
It was he was looking at himself while he was looking at her.
It's pretty amazing. All right, Joe DiGenova, thank you. Always appreciate your insights, sir.
You bet, guys.
All right, happy Veterans Day. Have a good week.
In the position of prominence, now that Harvey Weinstein is gone, they have an entirely new and younger group of Hollywood producers and directors who are helping direct the Obamas' return to political prominence. And I say this because right now we're seeing the initial setting of the table for 2020. Well, this is all the big buildup to the Democratic primary and the Republican primary for the presidency. We're going to see a challenge to Donald Trump, perhaps from Mitt Romney, perhaps from Jeff Flake. Howard Schultz announced over the weekend, which we're going to get to this issue later in the show. But Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, has announced that he's basically setting up a team to run for president. He hasn't officially announced it, including
a very familiar team.
Yeah, including the guy who ran John McCain's pathetic campaigns for the presidency. So that's all you need to know about Howard Schultz. So as frustrating as it is that Republicans lost more seats than they had hoped for and hoped to lose in the midterms, and it seems like now they've lost up to 40 seats, which is not good. But nevertheless, as much as that is frustrating for us, the Democrats never seem to learn the lessons of offending a wide swath of the American people. And so, don't you agree, Raymond? They always take it a step too far.
Well, I mean, I think the frustration we're seeing in these recounts in Florida and Arizona, Georgia rather, and the outrage that, again, Broward County is ground zero in a recount battle. Didn't we learn anything from 2000?
No.
And the corruption here really needs to be exploded and explored. And the American people, not only the people of Florida, need answers on how we got here again and where these mysterious ballots are coming from. You know, now they're basically writing up ballots to be, you know, they're ballots that weren't properly filled out. So the officials
filling them out
are going
for the
to divine,
people. Yeah.
Right, divine the intention. I mean, this is like I heard Lieberman earlier, or rather, I heard Newt Gingrich talking about in Georgia. There were some people who were filling out ballots for dead relatives or relatives who left for other states, just imagining, oh, well, this is how they would have voted, so I'll just fill this out and send it in for them. I mean, this is the kind of corruption we're seeing in Florida, and it really needs to stop. We need to figure out what's going on here.
I actually spoke with a number of people in Arizona yesterday, and we'll have more on this later on, but a number of individuals who told me about the shenanigans in Arizona, in Maricopa County, and in there's one other county, and excuse me for not remembering, in Tucson. I think it's Pena County, where emergency polling stations were opened without with only notice given to one side, naming to Kyrsten Sinema's campaign. Wow. So suddenly emergency polling stations were opened, and then door knockers were conveniently placed to vote, and on the door knockers it said, vote, no ID required, for these emergency polling stations. And it was just curious how only one side seemed to know that these emergency polling stations were set up, which again was contrary to how things were supposed to go. In the procedural norms that are being violated by one side here is appalling. This is just an appalling series of actions. Now, we're going to bring you a report on exactly what is happening in Arizona. And I know everyone's like, well, there's 29,000 votes. I understand that. But Republicans cannot let these Democrat election officials get away with violating the rules of the road for these elections. Because if they can violate them with impunity now, imagine what they're going to do in 2020. So every violation of election laws on either side, but primarily these are happening now on the Democratic side, both in Florida and in Arizona. This has got to be exposed, and lawsuits need to be filed, regardless of whether you're going to make up the votes. It's very important that this be done. So I have another report on that. I'll bring that to you later on. 855-40-LAURA. Raymond Arroyo is with us. We're going to take a break. Michelle Obama claiming, oh, her husband's administration, it was such a relief to have this calm, learned, book smart guy running the country. And now it's just hitting her, right in the heart because, read between the lines. This, racist is running the country. Don't go away.
Give them the old razzle dazzle.
Our presence in the White House had been celebrated by millions of Americans, but it also contributed to a reactionary sense of fear and resentment among others. The hatred was old and deep and as dangerous as ever.
They're still crying. Look at them. They're still crying. I see with sequence.
Pluto TV is the leading free streaming television service. Watch over 100 TV channels and thousands of movies on demand, all for free. No credit card needed, no sign up. Pluto TV is the easy and completely legal to watch your favorite TV shows and hit movies. So what are you waiting for? Never pay for TV again. Download Pluto TV for free on all of your favorite devices today.
as much as you loved your husband and gave him your blessing to run for president, you didn't think he would win.
I think I did what a lot of black folks were doing. We were afraid to hope because it's hard to believe that the country that oppressed you could one day be led by you. You know, I mean, my grandparents, lived through segregation. These memories were real, and they didn't think the country was ready, and so my attitude was a reflection of that skepticism.
Oh, Michelle Obama said that. I haven't seen it. I guess she wrote a book. She got paid a lot of money to write a book, and they always insist that you come up with controversy.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Well, Michelle Obama is reflecting on her time as, the wife of a candidate for the presidency, and, she didn't think it was possible. Well, I guess I understand that. I mean, I'm not sure if I can't criticize her for that. I mean, it come a long way. I mean, I think the good news here is whatever you think about the President Obama, it's a sign that there was enormous progress in the United States, racial progress, healing, and advancement, opportunities. There's no doubt about it. Opportunities for people of all backgrounds and ethnicities, and that's a good thing. The concerning thing, however, is when people act like there has been no progress made at all and want to use race as a weapon against people who had nothing to do ever with racism. That's the problem. I think we all agree that it's great news that people of all ethnic and racial backgrounds have advanced. And look, we had a 2-term president. He is elected not once but twice, including by a substantial percentage of white Americans. They didn't care what color his skin was. They voted for someone they thought was going to deliver, quote, change to America. But when you go back and you review just how divided the country was at the end of Obama's term, it's stunning. I tweeted this out last week, and it was shocking. I mean, it really was shocking. This is January 15th, 2017, right before Donald Trump was inaugurated. This is AP, Associated Press. More Americans feel Barack Obama's presidency divided the country than feel it brought people together. 8 years after Obama's historic election, just 27% see the United States as more united as a result of his presidency. And far more, 44% say they think it's more divided. These figures underscore one of the key contradictions of Obama's presidency. By and large, Americans like him, yet aside from the big Obamacare health care overhaul, he's been unable to translate that approval into congressional majorities to fulfill many of his goals. And then Obama said that. It's one of the few regrets of my presidency, that the rancor and suspicion between the parties has gotten worse instead of better. Well, who's responsible for that? But 57% viewed him more favorably, putting him way ahead of George W. Bush, who went out with low personal approvals. Just over half of Obama's, say Obama's presidency has been great or good. 37% view him unfavorably. Fascinating. We have a lot more to get to. 855-40-LAURA. Stay there.
Now witness the quickness with which we
One of the concerns you hear is Democrats are just going to issue subpoena after subpoena and make the president's life legally more difficult. Is there a limitation to that you see?
Well, we are responsible. We are not scattershot. We are not doing any investigation for a political purpose.
Why did you lie to me?
Oh, yeah. No political purpose whatsoever. No. This is just all for the people. This is not about 2020. They're already lining him up. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us. Congressman Steve Scalise from the great state of Louisiana. His new book.